I bet you didn't know there are 3 different types of meringue, and I'm going to show you how to make all of them. Hi, I'm Astrid from the Sweet Rebellion, and today we're going to be doing a masterclass in making meringue. First we have French meringue, which is the most common and also the least stable. Next is Swiss meringue, and lastly Italian meringue, which is the most tricky to make but also the most stable. Here are some tips for making any of the 3 meringues. Always use fresh eggs as they are the most viscous and will whip up to the greatest volume. It's really important that you don't get any of your egg yolk into your egg whites. The reason for this is that egg yolk contains fats, and fat will prevent your egg whites from whipping up to their full volume. Be sure to use either a glass or stainless steel bowl. Plastic bowls tend to be greasy and your meringue won't whip up properly. As a general rule, you want to use a ratio of 2:1 sugar to egg whites. The first type of meringue we're going to make today is French meringue. This is also the easiest meringue and requires no special equipment. French meringue is the lightest in texture and gives a melt-in-the-mouth feel when baked. On the downside, it is the least stable of all the meringues. French meringue is used to make meringue cookies, pavlova, and is also used in making soufflés. For this recipe, you will need 4 large eggs, 240 grams of castor sugar, half a teaspoon of cream of tartar, and a pinch of salt. The reason that we add cream of tartar is that it's acidic, and the acid helps to set the proteins in the egg whites, making a more stable meringue. If you don't have it, you can also use a teaspoon of lemon juice. The salt does the same thing and also helps to balance out the sweetness. With French meringue, it's best to use castor sugar as it dissolves much quicker than granulated sugar. With Swiss and Italian meringue, this is not a problem as we're going to be using heat. To start off with, we need to separate our eggs. It's easier to separate your eggs when they're cold, but the egg whites will whip up to a greater volume at room temperature, so it's best to separate them in advance and just leave them out at room temperature for a little while. Separate your eggs one at a time, just in case something goes wrong, then you won't lose all the eggs you've already separated. If you want to know what to do with your egg yolks, go back and watch my video on how to make classic creme brulee. To get started, we're going to add our 4 large egg whites to our mixer bowl and whisk until frothy. Then we'll add our half a teaspoon of cream of tartar and a pinch of salt. Now that our egg whites have reached soft peak stage, I'm going to start adding my castor sugar 1 tablespoon at a time. Be sure to only start adding your sugar once your egg whites have reached soft peak stage. If you start adding it too soon, your egg whites won't reach their full volume. We add our castor sugar 1 tablespoon at a time, just to make sure that the sugar has got a chance to dissolve properly. To check if your castor sugar has fully dissolved, just take a small amount between your fingertips and rub it to feel if there's any graininess. If it's still a little bit grainy, then just continue to mix it for a few minutes longer. It is possible to overmix your meringue, so once it's really stiff, glossy, and no longer grainy, stop mixing. So this is your basic French meringue recipe. At this point, you could fold in any flavor or essence that you like, for example, vanilla essence. The second meringue we're going to be making is Swiss meringue. Swiss meringue is made by heating egg whites and sugar in a water bath. It is used for pie toppings and to make Swiss meringue buttercream. Don't worry if you don't have a sugar thermometer, it's not essential to make Swiss meringue. If you're using it to make Swiss meringue buttercream, it's best that you heat it to 71 degrees to make sure that there's no salmonella. But if you're going to bake your meringues, then you only need to heat it until the sugar has dissolved. For this recipe, you will need 4 large egg whites, 240 grams of sugar, half a teaspoon of cream of tartar, and a pinch of salt. With French meringue, you can use an electric hand mixer, but due to the long mixing time of Swiss meringue, it's best to use a stand mixer. I'm going to place all my ingredients into my stand mixer bowl and then place that over a pot of simmering water, making sure that it doesn't touch the water. Then I'm going to whisk it constantly until the sugar has dissolved and the mixture is opaque. I'm going to be heating mine to 71 degrees, which I'll check with a sugar thermometer. Now we're going to transfer our bowl to our stand mixer and whisk for 10 to 15 minutes until the bowl is cool to the touch. There you have your Swiss meringue. As you can see, it's a lot stiffer and glossier than our French meringue. Again, it's at this point you would add your flavorings if you're using any. The last meringue we're going to be making is Italian meringue. It is the most stable, but it is the trickiest to make. For this meringue, we're going to make a hot sugar syrup and add that to our egg whites. The tricky part is that the syrup and the egg whites need to be ready at exactly the same time. For this meringue, it's essential to have a sugar thermometer as well as a stand mixer. For this recipe, you will need 4 large egg whites, 240 grams of sugar, 60 grams of water, half a teaspoon of cream of tartar, and a pinch of salt. Italian meringue is used to make Italian meringue buttercream, which is similar to Swiss meringue buttercream but is slightly more stable. It's also used to decorate cakes and pastries. We're going to add our sugar and water to a saucepan and heat it gently over low heat until the sugar dissolves. Then we'll increase the heat and continue cooking until it reaches 115 degrees. In the meantime, we can add our egg whites, cream of tartar, and salt to our mixing bowl and have that ready to mix. Just before our syrup reaches 115 degrees, we can start mixing our egg whites until they reach soft peak stage. Then we need to carefully add our syrup and mix on a low speed until all the syrup is incorporated. Then increase the speed and mix for about 10 minutes until we've got a stiff and glossy meringue. Be careful when adding your hot sugar syrup to your egg whites. You want to aim the syrup between the beater and the bowl. If the syrup hits the beaters, it will splatter, and if it hits the bowl, it can solidify quite quickly. And there you have your Italian meringue. It's really thick, dense, and marshmallowy. And there you have it, French, Swiss, and Italian meringue. My favorite is Swiss meringue. Let me know in the comments which is your favorite.